Okay, now we're good.
Okay, we're good.
Approval of the minutes, they were sent out. If anyone has any additions or corrections,
To approve.
have a first
I'll second that.
and a second. Thank you. So the next item up for discussion is our request for a proposal to obtain a marketing company and suggestions which companies to use. I did write an RFP, and it's at MnDOT right now for their approval. So we will wait for that to happen, but to kind of keep the ball moving, I know City Manager Dalton, you said that you had some ideas of folks in town.
Yep.
So if we maybe could get that on record, who they are.
Yeah, the two I know off the top of my head would be 4C Studios and Ashley Aukis. I think it's Barrick Studios.
There.
To help out. We'll do a little more research on our end to see other local companies that could do that, but those are the two I know off the top of my head.
Okay.
So I'll put a,
Repeat those, Chris?
it's 4C Studios and Barrick Studios.
What?
Barrick?
Barrick.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Beurck, I think.
Okay. I was told of one in Morgan too,
Okay,
that
perfect.
another transit operation has used, but personally, I'd like to keep it local if we could, but of course, an RFP, they would have to follow the rules of it, so.
I'll put a spreadsheet together and I'll work with the chambers too to see if they have any other companies
Any other,
in
sure.
town. So
Yep.
I'll get that to you by the end of the week or Monday
Okay.
for sure.
Great,
So, yeah.
thank you. Then the next order is that, as you can see on the screen, Scott, Commissioner Winchell's, City Manager Dalton and City Engineer Dalton, or Joe Stadheim had a meeting with Amber Dahlman from the Minnesota Department of Transportation, along with Kathleen Amick, who just joined us, about a no low emission bus that came to, an email came to me about a month and a half ago. Visited with Barb Dietz about that, who suggested that it was something we should look into. Visited with the state of Minnesota, who encouraged us that the city of New Ulm route would be perfect fit for this. And so visited with City Manager Dalton and Engineer Stadheim, and we decided to go ahead and move forward with it. And so the meeting was quite fruitful. There's only three other transit agencies that are interested in this, so the money is available for 100% funding for the bus and the infrastructure. As you can see, the bus looks exactly like our bus. No really difference at all. This is one of the manufacturers. I don't know if you're able to scroll down at all, but it does have, this one has an option to have the battery life to last 300,000 miles in 8 years, so it has a warranty on it. So I know we had some concerns about that, and so this kind of addresses that. I don't know if you can move to the next sheet. And this is where it gets plugged in, so it's kind of a again, that's kind of the only difference for that. There was some talk in our meeting. We were kind of concerned about who would work on this vehicle. I did visit with Spaeth Ford yesterday, and they do have a EV mechanic, and they have the infrastructure. And he said within 2 years, they'll have multiple EV mechanics to take care of that. That was something that the state was really concerned about with who was going to work on these buses, and the deed commissioner actually was going to get involved if we needed to train somebody. But in New Ulm, we are pretty well set for that. So that's a really good option. The next sheet Joe's going to pull up here is, this is what the charging station looks like. How much does that weigh, Nate? It was pretty heavy, right?
530, 540 pounds. And on the bottom, you kind of see a plastic skid that you can pick it up with a forklift. That's the standard charger for that company's.
And
This
it's
is the long-term,
the fast charge.
fast charge.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
and it's about a 4-hour charge, for something like that. So, again, the grant would cover this as well. There was talk about where we'd be keeping it at our barn, with cold weather, but according to the specs on this, it could be up to, was it 23 below zero? It would be, it could still do the charging piece of it. Our concern there is that this heavy piece of equipment, though, at our barn is not really ideal because we have to move out every time the fair comes to town. And to move something like this would be kind of cumbersome. So I think we're gonna have to come up with a different solution as far as where we would store these electric vehicles. Again, these are, we're looking years out, just so I want everyone to be aware. It's not gonna be, and she made that very clear to us, just by going with electric bus, we aren't gonna get a bus any quicker, it'd probably be actually a little slower. So these are things that we'll have to address as we move forward, and there's just some of the specs. The next sheet just shows some of the specs. It's a little hard to read. I do have the paper, we can pass that around if anyone's interested, and we can include them in the minutes as well. The next sheet, I think, is just another picture of another electric bus, and some specs on it. So the nice thing is they look like our bus. I think if we would move forward with this, I know the Brown County Commissioners yesterday approved for us to move forward with it, so now it'd be up to the city to decide if it's something you guys want to move forward with. The next ones we'll hold on to, Joe. That's a different presentation that we'll move on to. And so, I don't know if there's any questions about it. Go ahead, Tom.
This will be a Ford chassis, just like our current chassis?
Correct.
And we'll
Yep.
get the same kind of comfortable seating for the drivers and the passengers that we have now?
Right, actually, the one that we were showing there is actually a Star Trans, which is what the two buses that we actually ordered. Of course, we ordered with the gas engine, so the configurations will be able to be the same as what we currently would be getting. So you'd walk on that bus, you wouldn't even know you were an electric bus, I think, if that's something we move forward with, though, I think that we should have a graphic on there that tells people, that, this is a green alternative and, to kind of promote that, because, that may be something people will ride the bus for, just to ride a green bus,
And these buses will look different than our fleet.
Yeah, right, they will be different, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll graphic them. The thought was probably to wrap them. That's something the marketing folks were hoping will help us with. So it's kind of exciting. I've been talking to the other agencies that are interested, and it's kind of interesting, all the agencies that are interested are located in our area. St. Peter, Fairmont, Austin are the other three locations. So it's kind of nice that we're all kind of, two of the four of us are based in your area, correct, Kathleen? So, yeah, so. They're all in the same district, okay. So, any questions, any other thoughts?
Just make a comment about the heaters in the wintertime take up a lot of energy, and that there is a small diesel motor that evidently, talked to some other people, they say semis use them all the time now to provide heat separate. So you're not totally green, but the consulting firm here that we're working with is going to check into or give us what the emissions are, so we know what those numbers are. We want to be as transparent as we can if we go that route. And I think
Right.
that's probably maybe something we should look into if we go.
For sure,
If it,
for sure. Yeah, and they're kind of suggesting that for colder climates. for this. It's what we called it in the industry of trucking industry. It was called a APU, auxiliary power unit, is what powers that kind of stuff, so.
And the intent would be in the application pad to apply for 2 buses, because of the mileage. It's not certain that 1 bus each day could do the route, so the request would be for 2 buses, 2 electric buses. And depending on, again, the number of applications and the dollar amount would depend on how much funding we get to cover the
Right,
cost of
right.
both buses or not.
And Amber did pose the question to City Manager Dalton that if need be, would the city be interested in ponying up some money for a second bus? And you didn't think that'd be a huge issue, but of course, that's a council decision. But, yeah, with just the 4 of us, there's the dollars are there, but they weren't sure how many buses each one of us are gonna want or need. So, I think it's kind of exciting, I think we're kind of coming in at the ground floor. It's gonna be the future, but, and we're gonna be kind of a guinea pig, to be honest with you, but, I think it should be.
Is there a website that has any of this information? I was asked that yesterday, and I said I didn't know.
I really struggled. I did find this Phoenix Motorsports is who the bus that I showed. It was kind of difficult for me to find.
Phoenix Motorsports?
Yeah, that was the bus that I showed there. And they've partnered with StarTrans and StarCraft to modify their vehicles. So Nate was looking, and one of the fellas on their management team actually came from Tesla. So they've got a lot of background in this sort of thing. So
Does the state have, Kathleen, does the state have any website that would give information about this?
I was just checking. I was just on a meeting this morning with the other.
Thank you.
I would say probably your Duluth Arrowhead area is probably, I would say, the test pilot area for cold weather at this point in time with the buses they're having, and a lot of the issues that they're seeing are being addressed through the manufacturers and stuff, dealing with the cold weather, because most people that drive electric vehicles are in this fashion are your warmer states, so it's kind of a new thing. But I think overall, I think it's good for the community taking the step in the right direction. I know everyone or most people are concerned about, being more green. And that's part of the application on our end as they're asking the utility, what does your renewable, portfolio look like, So we'll be able to answer those questions, but I think this is pushing us in the right direction moving forward.
One of the other concerns that we discussed was the disposal of the batteries once they do, and there really isn't a lot known on what's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but that we need to have information in regards to that, because if we're proposing green, we got to consider what we're leaving behind too, so.
Years from now.
Yeah, they're all good discussions to have, that's for sure. Hearing no other comment or suggestion about this, I don't know, do you know when they will be when the council will take this? Do you guys have a meeting coming up, or?
We'll probably bring it, first meeting in May. I was waiting to see how the county
Okay.
voted on it, and then we'll bring it.
Okay, and I did let Amber know that the council, or the commissioners did okay us moving forward, so once I get your green light, I'll give that to her as well, so.
Okay.
So review of the city around additional thoughts and feedback. I'm not sure if anyone on the committee here has heard feedback from anybody or from any of the constituents. Was there any negative thoughts, any
No, I mean, haven't heard any negative comments or comments in general. I think, once we get it up and running, that's probably when we're gonna hear the feedback, from most people. Overall, I think we're hitting most of the areas. With one bus, it's what we can do at this point in time. When we get another bus, when we have that 2-bus system, that's when we can look at, stop at Kraft, stop at 3M, and those type of things to have that work. But as of right now, this initial route, I think, covers where people need to move at this point in time.
So I did get a message from Tom yesterday, and I'll just share it with the group, if you don't mind, Tom.
Sure.
So Tom was concerned that, how would we make these stops and how would people know? So we would have a published, time frame. So I used Hy-Vee, for example. We're supposed to be there at 19 past the hour. It's 20 past the hour. If no one is standing out, the bus will just move along. If it's 18 past the hour, the driver will be instructed, he needs to wait till the time that he is supposed to be at that stop. So that's how you either make up time, by just bypassing stops that no one either is asking to get off the bus or there's no one standing there to get on the bus. So, as long as we consistently, say that the bus is gonna be at a certain location at a certain time, the bus would just, stay on that route as best it could, So if you were like at your place there, Kim, at Emerson, and we told you were gonna be picked up at 20 past the hour, if you're not out there at 20 past, the bus would just move along. Even if you're standing inside, you're gonna have to kind of be watching, that the bus is on its, and we know it's Minnesota and 20 below, it's not fun to stand out, but as long as you kind of have the ideal that the bus would be there within that time frame. So that's kind of, Tom, just so you, and the rest of the committee, that's,
Time, I'm trying to do this whole town in an hour. I was gonna ask, Marshall has the whole town with 1 bus or 2?
They started out with one, and then within a couple of years, they had a second one, kind of dissecting the one. So,
And that may be our future too then.
yeah.
Redwood Falls, it's 1, and they're sticking with 1.
they only, as the momentum got going, then we had, it's gonna take a while for that one.
To build
But
that
it's
up.
not nearly the size town this is.
Correct.
It's probably half the size. Yeah. I'm thinking of Redwood. But Redwood, or Marshall is comparable. Yeah.
The one thing when we rode the bus in Redwood, the bus was going into locations, into parking lots, and doing some maneuvers that were time consuming, that we wouldn't be doing. We'd be just staying on the curb, on the road, pulling over on the side of the road and picking up folks. We're only in a situation where we're in a parking lot at sunset, and just because it makes sense, But most places, we are not, going into a parking lot and turning. In Redwood Falls, we were doing quite a bit of that, to be honest with you, at different locations. And the one was quite tricky, I thought, to get in, was, a lot of cars and
And Marshall doesn't do that then. So much.
So much. A lot of them are the right-of-way areas, but like with the Walmarts and the Hy-Vee and, other school apartments, where the bus can easily get in and get out. That's
The key.
because if there's other vehicles in there, that could delay the route.
I'm just thinking of Hy-Vee and how congested that gets out
Right.
front there.
And that's kind of why at Hy-Vee, we talked about not pulling up to the store part, kind of staying back more near the liquor store.
And then turn around and
And
go back
getting out right away, yeah. So, those were thoughts that we had. And at the trailer courts, it'd be the same thing, pulling in by the mailbox at the Mobile Village and at Trolloc, just stopping along by the street by Ridgeway. instead of pulling in there, you know. So if you're at Trolic or Mobile Village, you're gonna have to hoof it might have to hoof it a block or so, but that's not unusual for these stops, you know, people kind of have to know that, so. Any other discussion about that?
You know, and Tom, you know, kind of to your point, you know, the goal ultimately is to have the two buses, you know, on the route so we can have, you know, shorter services, you know, an hour I think is
Max.
pushing it, you know, a little bit, you know, and, you know, maybe year 2 or 3, we can get that second bus to split it up and then have 2 half-hour routes or, you know, or 20-minute routes or something like that
And
to
with
make
the
it a little
battery
easier.
thing, it might help too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, you know, I look at this, the initial phase to get people used to riding a bus instead of always being in their car, you know, transitioning from Heartland Express to being on a bus and that, hey, yeah, you may have to walk a block to get to a stop, but, you know, we'll also have other modes of transportation. We'll work with Bird to put scooters at some of the stops so, you know, you can travel, you know, to other locations, and I'll use the Emerson Union one or St. Michael's one Emerson Union one is a good example. Stop at Emerson Union, have scooters there. Kids can then take them down to the rec center and then back to that stop if they need to get back on the bus. So it's just working those details out. You know,
For sure.
we have the infrastructure in place. How do we use it to its fullest advantage?
Have there been any thought about bringing a bike share company in? They do that in Sleepy Eye around the lake. I don't know if there's anybody that's,
No one's approached us. I know Councilor Schultz, you had talked about it a couple times with the chamber, but that's really not gained any traction. You know, I would say I like the scooter model slightly better because you don't have to dock the bike somewhere.
Right.
With the scooters, you could just leave it there, and someone usually comes within
Sure.
24 hours to pick them up. But you know, it's not off the table at the end of the day.
Okay. As I was on a call the other day with Elliot McFadden from MnDOT, and he had some folks on there that gal actually in a rural Kansas county, even smaller than Brown County, they actually just bought a bunch of used bikes and just put them around the city. And then you just go into the store and you rent, I mean, it's not like a card type thing, it's kind of an on your honor type thing, and it's been very successful. They haven't had anybody stealing anything, but again, you know, it's a small county and stuff. So, you know, I just think that, you know, maybe as we start the bus route too, that might be an option for, you know, somebody that does this sort of thing might say, hey, let's get some bikes over in New Ulm, you know.
And if that was something that, you know, was, you know, desired, whatever, I would think maybe a SHIP grant would even be able to purchase the bicycles and whatnot, try to help out that way, I bet.
Right, yeah.
I know they do have a trailer right now, but I haven't seen it for a number of years, that's got 30 bikes or so in there, 50, I don't know, 50, 30 bikes, I'd say, that can be used by anyone. That they're, you know, brand new in a trailer, you can haul them around, but,
Wow.
so.
Yeah, so, you know, as we move forward, because we always talk about last mile, you know, when we're visiting with MnDOT folks, they always talk about last mile. You know, you can get people from point A to point B, but how do you get them home, you know? And so, that's something to think about as you move forward, and if you have anybody that, you know, is interested, you know, when we had workshop last week, Kathleen, can you remember, how many buses are they behind right now? Did they tell us, is there 6,000 or 9,000 buses in the queue that they don't have any clue when they will be built? Do you remember that conversation that,
All the manufacturers,
right,
yeah, it's like triple from years past.
yeah, so there's like 6,000 to 9,000 buses right now in queue that are people like us waiting for buses. Told us that any bus that we ordered last year, we will probably not see till '23. So that presents a huge problem for this committee, obviously. So I attended, one of the workshop breakout sessions was about buses. And I shared my frustration with us wanting to get this off the ground. And our neighbor to the north of us, Trailblazer Transit, said he has some extra buses. They got 200,000 miles on it. Joe, the next pictures are gonna be of those buses, or of the bus. They're 2013 models. The thing about Trailblazer, as everyone in the state knows, this is a 2013 bus with 206,000 miles on it. It could be easily modified for our route. He has the facilities to wash his bus daily. And if you show the next picture too, there's a picture of the insides. And then there's one more. But he is willing to sell us this bus for less than $5,000, which I think is something we should consider as a group, to use this bus as we would, so we could start the route quite soon. I mean, you know, it's going to take some time for us to work through what we need to do for it. Not sure what everyone's feeling on it. It would be this would be the city bus, so we would put the graphics on there to show that it was a city bus. And then, you know, it's gonna,
Not a full-on wrap, so
Right.
abbreviated version for now, since obviously we're waiting for the new one to get here. But it's an option to be pulling now.
it would get us off the ground. We could start it, you know, within 3-4 months, you know.
This
And
would
then-
be a cost for the city because of the fact that there's not going to be any MinDOT funding for it because it's a used bus. It's not a new bus coming in, but again, not a huge cost that would be. But the other advantage is, of course, we get it started in 2022. We have got the, you know, zero operating cost to the city for running the route. Whereas if we wait until next year, we don't have that, and then we're waiting another year before another bus comes. So it's an alternative to get things going.
You know, I don't think it would be a huge issue. Again, we set aside money for the cost sharing for this year anyway. And since it's 100% covered, we have that cushion, you know, that we would have carried over for next year as well. So if it's $5,000 or under, I don't see that being an issue. But again, council decision at that point. But I would definitely bring that to council if we wanted to bring that forward as a recommendation to get the bus started this year.
And of course, we would do our due diligence with bringing a mechanic up there and having them check it out, you know. Kathleen can probably attest that, I mean, Gary runs a very, very tight fleet, and you know, his buses are meticulously maintained, so his 200,000-mile vehicle is probably like getting one from another agency with 130,000, you know, miles. He's very meticulous with his taking care of them, you know, inside out, mechanically, you know.
I didn't look close, but is that another chassis, Ford chassis?
It's a
like
Ford
ours?
chassis, yep. It's kind of, it has some flip seats in there. So flip seats are like where the wheelchair would normally go. There's three flip seats, so those could be brought down if there wasn't a wheelchair in there. So the seating capacity would be the same as ours. Nate and I,
Longer. On the picture.
sometimes it just depends on the manufacturer. Sometimes it's the windows, I think, sometimes when you look at them, that the windows,
But it's not.
it's the same size as what we'll be getting, so.
It would require a Class B passenger endorsement, CDL, driver's license.
Yeah. So, you know,
These other buses have wheelchair access on the electric?
yes. Yep. Nothing, it has to. If you are gonna be ordering a bus through MinDOT, it has to have ADA capacity. You have to be able to have and that's the same way with this one too. It has 2 wheelchair positions, so.
It's kind of a shame, these buses in the past have resold for about $2,500 if you're
Right.
lucky, you know? So it's not like, 5,000 seems like a bargain, I guess, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is.
And he said it'd be under $5,000 because anything over $5,000, you have to, Kathleen, help me. If it's over $5,000, it has to be, what,
Well,
Fitted.
that you're using $6, then there's really no tie in the
So that's why he was interested in keeping it under that amount. so.
And we're currently driving buses that have that many miles on it
Or more,
or more.
or more,
So,
yeah.
Maybe isn't today's topic, but I does have some concerns with, you know, if we got another year yet, and we got, I don't know how many miles we're running in a year, but those buses are gonna be all used.
Our door-to-door service, the 5 buses that run daily, last year did 172,000 miles combined,
And that was a COVID year.
with us bouncing back.
with some reduced in mileage yet because of COVID though, in 2021.
But even, go back to 2019, I think we did about 185
Okay.
or so. So you basically, between the 7 buses of Heartland, you're almost driving up a bus each year when you add all the mileage together.
That's all. I just-
Okay.
I like the idea of starting right away, getting the used bus and starting right away. My only concern is we are starting to train people that we want to use the bus route. And if something happens and it breaks down, I don't want to all of a sudden, it's not running today because, that's my only concern. Is there a backup plan? You know, if this bus isn't working, how do we keep that route going?
So we'd still do have our 2, then we'd still have our 2 in backup, you know, that we could either use for the city or for the county use. You know, if we would start the bus service now, we'd only have 1 backup, so that was the concern. If, you know, if one of my buses, the county buses went down and the city bus went down, there's no option, but at least now we have 2 options to choose from. That's why the thought that we didn't want to start the route with what we have, we wanted to bring something else in, so.
We'd have to do some kind of magnetic signing or something to be able to pop it over so they knew it was a.
And that's an option too, or we just thought it might be easy to remove his lettering and go to Sid Signs or somebody and, you know, get some, have him re-letter it, you know.
Right, but if that bus is down, then we,
As a backup
Oh,
bus.
I see what you're saying,
The
yeah.
backup bus
So we
instead
could
of
have
something.
magnetic signs
Yep.
made up that we could stick on. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah,
Even be regular maintenance that needs to be done on that bus during the
and
hours that the
there's
bus
gonna
would need to
be,
drive. So,
exactly,
so you'd want to have a backup bus
yeah.
with signage.
With the number of miles that the city route runs each loop of the day, I figured it'd be about 30,000 miles a year that city bus would run. Well, that, you know, once we get a new unit, there's no reason it couldn't last 6, 7, 8 years.
Right, yeah, and so if we're buying a bus with 200,000 miles on, in a year it'll have 230. We're running buses right now that are more than that, so.
240.
240, so. So,
You haven't had a lot of repairs on those.
I'm knocking on wood. Because now there's a,
breaks.
and now there's a part supply shortage that people are waiting for parts
That's-
too, so.
That's my next question.
Yeah, so we've been very, very, hearing from other transit agencies, they've had a lot of transmissions go down, but we have not.
We had a lot of issues with heaters and air
Air
conditioning.
conditioners.
And parts, have we had trouble with that already?
So far, we've been pretty fortunate. Our guys up at the highway department know what needs to be on hand that we go through the most, and they keep a little inventory up at the Brown County Highway Shop,
Okay, certain parts. you keep.
especially for the wheelchair lift, the mobility lifts. They probably are sitting on anywhere from $500 to $1,000 of parts at any given time up there.
Okay,
Yeah, they do an amazing job for us. We're very fortunate
know.
that they're able to work with us, so. So I don't know if we want to have you, City Manager Dalton, move forward and talk to your council about this, and then I will hold off on going to, do you have a city mechanic that you guys would want maybe to come and?
Yeah, we have someone. I'll see if they'd be available.
Okay,
Maybe both of them, county and the city, go out and
right,
take a look
that's
at
what
it.
I feel the same way.
And then if, to make it a little easier conversation with council, if you wanted to kind of get let's go, a quote from him on what the actual price
Sure.
would be, I think that would go a long way.
And I think Barb and I were visiting, it would have to, the dollars would obviously flow through us, and then we would just bill you that's kind of what we talked about, right, Barb? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Nate and I also talked that, remember, the bus has to announce each stop, so we'd probably want to put a TV screen in there. So that would be a retrofit to something that's not in there currently. Otherwise, we'd have to make announcements for each stop, but if we have the TV in there, that would announce the stops and and work for that, unless you had somebody that was hearing impaired, and then we'd have to announce the stops, but, you know. So. Any other business that anyone wanted to take care of at this point, or do we want to set up a next meeting, or?
Well, if a decision is made by the city council to purchase the bus and we go ahead with that, we can probably really get into the detail at the next meeting
Right.
about when we might want to start with that. Because we'd also have to look at just hiring drivers as
Right.
well, for when and choosing a date as to when we want to start.
Yeah, I'd probably be looking either the second meeting in May or the first meeting in June, just to see when we can get the mechanics up there to look at it, so we can
Sure.
have all that information, so.
To bring it to the council?
Yeah, to
after
bring it
they've
to the
looked at
council,
Yep,
yeah.
makes sense. Yep.
Okay. You and I can get together then, and we can get them together, and we'll go up there and visit with the folks there, so.
Okay. Yep. That'll work.
Kathleen, do you know of anything? We're on track? If anyone doesn't know in the room, this is our MnDOT representative, and she's been very helpful in guiding us through this process. So, hearing no other business, I call for an adjournment. Do I hear a second or first?
I'll first it.
I'll second it, but did we pick a date, or did you want to?
Let us see when we can get the mechanics, and then we'll send out a
Okay.
doodle poll
Okay.
or something to see when the next one is.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So what do you think about electric buses?